dear Bagginses and Boffins.
Okay, we get to the big question. I might even split this into a separate video.
This is a problem, yes.
Yeah, because this is what everyone is talking about. What exactly is the source material here? So, what did Amazon buy? I mean, I'm actually asking this out loud, but I'm also reading it accidentally because that's exactly what they wrote here. But what did Amazon buy? So the answer, we have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit, Payne says. They do not have the rights to the movies. So the lines of dialogue that Peter Jackson uses, unfortunately, we will not get those, which really sucks because that is some of the best dialogue from some of those speeches. Give me chills, and I would love to have at least essences of those lines reflected here. I don't know how much they're allowed to do with that. They do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, the History of Middle-earth, or any of the books that reveal the Tolkien letters, where he goes into further detail that never made it into a book. Now the question becomes, which they don't answer here, why would they do a show set in a world that they don't have the rights to?
Yeah.
This answer to me is not good enough. So, like they even pointed out here, there's a version of everything we need for the Second Age in the books we have the rights to, McKay says, as long as we're painting with those lines and not egregiously contradicting something that we don't have the rights to. So they not only do they not have the rights to the books that they need, the rights extend even further in that they can't contradict those books with which they don't have the rights.
Yes.
So they can't tell the same story, and they can't go against the story that was told. So they can't do anything. Like, how do you make a show where you can't write the show what's already been done in the books, and then you can't also do something completely different? It has to at least be as if it could fit into that book. That's just such a crazy thing to ask of these young writers.
It's terrifying.
Like, sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I would love to work on this Lord of the Rings show. It'd be so fun. And then I think about the nightmare it would be to be combing through the book to make sure we didn't contradict anything in the book, but also looking at such brilliant work and knowing we can't use it. You know what I mean? Like, how do you have that creative juice flowing while you're reading Tolkien's actual work, knowing you can't use it? And then you're sitting there like, how am I supposed to make something as good, fits the story, but not this? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So this is the part I do not think is answered very well. And it's not their faults necessarily. It's Amazon's fault, if anything, I think. But it could also be Tolkien Estate. Peter Jackson maybe didn't want to give them the green light to take on his movies. I don't really know what went on there. It sounds like they didn't even meet up with Peter Jackson, just in terms of their schedules. It never worked out. Not that they didn't try, but it sounds like it didn't work out, which is a shame. I think Jackson having a sit down with him just to have him explain his sort of process and undertaking in terms of how Peter Jackson did make changes, as we've talked about, and nobody cares anymore. Some people cared before the movies were released, but now nobody cares. And I think a lot of the changes were for the better. So I think that mindset of when to make changes and how you still show an appreciation for the original source material by putting in either the dialogue from a character you're omitting somewhere else, or you bridge two characters together and have them feel like both characters. I think these are important bits that I hope that these writers are able to figure it out. Now, they do talk about they have the rights to some songs in the books, and the songs do explain plot points.
And oh, that's true.
So they can use those songs. So they talk explicitly about a song called "The Fall of Gil-galad," and so they can use that song, even if that song is also, even if that plot is also in other Tolkien works. They have the rights to the song, so they can use it. So there is some stuff there. They have the appendices, they have the songs, and they have the stories that they tell each other.
Right, and I was telling you earlier about the Tolkien's take on how golf was invented. That's from The Hobbit, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So they have that.
So they can have a story about. Maybe I shouldn't ruin it to people who don't know.
No, go ahead. I think it's a good one.
But, well, I didn't read it recently, but I just remember some hobbit. I think it was a Took lopped the head off of a goblin and it landed it in a hole, and then that's how golf was invented.
Yeah, so they can throw that in. I don't think they will, because not only does that not really fit with what they're trying to tell, because it seems like the hobbits they're trying to show are a little bit more like naive and adventurous, not lopping off the heads of goblins. But also, I just don't like that story. I don't think golf belongs in Middle Earth, so I prefer not to include that. Like, imagine if you show up and the dwarves have guns.
That'd be kind of funny if you just have like a casual scene of the characters are out golfing.
How about this? I'll give you no. I'll give you this. No. What you can do, because I would not like that. What you can do is in the far background, out of focus, but upon like your fifth rewatch, you notice somebody golfing way in the distance. I'll give you that. That's what you can have, and it can be a little Easter egg for you and the 5 other people in the world that care about that story.
But you can have because they talk about Elrond having like political ambitions, so you can just have Elrond, golfing with all the foreign leaders.
Oh my god.
Discussing.
No. Although, I mean, some of these people, they might prefer that because of they want to be so strict to the source material that's really all you can do. Now here's another part to this that they say, but it's not entirely true. We worked in conjunction with world-renowned Tolkien scholars and the Tolkien estate to make sure that the way we connected the dots were Tolkienian and gelled with the experts and the estate's understanding of the material. This is not entirely true. The estate is only in contact with them to make sure they're not contradicting the other works of Tolkien. So the estate is not like looking over and like helping them. It's literally there on a legal basis to make sure that they don't screw up other stuff. And in terms of the experts, we know that there has been some massive disagreements, and in fact, one of them has left the project.
Exoduses, yeah.
So this part to me, not entirely true. So I really don't like their answer on this one. But then again, they're trying to sway public opinion. I get that, but this is not even true. And the fact that they don't have the rights to this, like they're not even bringing up the fact that they don't have the rights to the entire time they're telling a story, when they do have the rights to the books, which have a lot of unfinished or unfleshed out parts of it. That, I mean, you saw in Peter Jackson. I mean, The Hobbit is not everyone's favorite. It's not my favorite piece of cinema, but Peter Jackson is able to connect some loosely sprinkled nuggets of a plot in The Hobbit in terms of Gandalf just disappearing for no reason and that kind of stuff. And he does tie it into some other story going on in the background. Now, some people say it's not great, and I agree. Like, The Hobbit was a 150-page little kids book, and they tried to adapt it into 3 movies, and so some of the plot points, they really stretched them. But what I'm saying is they were able to, without wrecking any of the material, tell a unique story that still fit in The Hobbit and still made sense in the grand scheme of Middle Earth. Um, so there are ways to do this, and I think maybe setting the entire show in the Second Age is just a massive risk. I don't know why they would do this without having some plan to get more of the material.
Right. In the books, it seems like the books, the Jackson movies, and the Amazon series, are they all considered to be separate canons?
No,
Or
that's the thing is the Tolkien estate has mandated that it's all the same canon. Obviously, there are minor differences in Peter Jackson's um Peter Jackson's films, but in terms of how they all connect, the Tolkien estate is trying to make sure that they all are somewhat interchangeable within the same setting. And so the books should reflect the movies, and they do for the most part. There are a few characters left out, like they let Vigo grow a beard, like these small things. I guess the Tolkien estate isn't as concerned with, but this show is supposed to, in some way, bridge into the movies. But again, they don't have the rights to the movies. They don't have the rights to any of the books other than the books that the movies are based on. So I just it's such a strange process to make this show. There are so many unique, and this is something that we'll get to in our comment response video. There are so many unique areas that are in the books that you can then talk about.
Just like how they're making the cartoon movie.
The War of the Rohirrim, yeah.
Why couldn't they focus on something like that, or you know what I mean?
Yep. I mean, like heck, I mean we saw it in The Hobbit to some degree, but you could have actually told the backstory in a much more fleshed out way on how Smaug takes the mountain, on the relationship between those dwarves and the elves and the people of Dale. Like that would be a nice little Games of Thrones-esque, different regions vying for power, that kind of thing. There's a lot of things you could do that would be interesting. Or telling the backstory of Aragorn, that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that this is not an interesting thing. Obviously, the Silmarillion is considered the be-all, end-all when it comes to the hardcore fans. It's like, if you haven't read this, you don't like Lord of the Rings. But that's the problem, is when they want to write a story that requires that novel as well as others, and they don't have the rights to it, you just got to cut your losses and say, that's not the story we can tell. I am waiting to be proven wrong on this. We're definitely going to be watching the first episode for sure, and I think I'm watching the whole series anyway. Even if heck, I finished Game of Thrones after all, and I hated every minute of the last 2.5 seasons. But so my whole point is, like, I really want this show to be to work and to tell a really nice story that does fit in with all the material and makes me feel like I'm once again back watching Fellowship of the Ring in theaters when I was 12 years old for the first time. That's what I want this show to do. That's a lot to ask, I know, but I need to at least have a feeling of a return to this magical world, and instead it's like we already know so many of the characters that they're using, and then they can't even use some of the stuff that actually happened to them. And so it's going to be some strange story that we're going to have to, hopefully it fits in with what we're familiar with. And it's huge risk. Mm-hmm. Anything else to say on this before we get to the next part? This is the big section that I think it's still a big hang up for people.
But you're right. There's a big question of they shouldn't be doing a show at all.
Yeah.
the only thing they have rights to have already been thoroughly covered by Peter Jackson.
I mean, at this point, tell me in the comments down below if I'm wrong. Would you guys prefer a show that is just set in the Shire and all it does is tell the what happens to Frodo between the time when he first gets the ring and when Gandalf returns? It's just daily life of a hobbit. That's all it is.
Like a full-on Hobbit soap opera.
Yeah, full on Hobbit. Like you've got like a weird Hobbit drama, like, you know, this person's animals got into this person's garden, and now the town is all in an uproar trying to figure out how to solve this problem. They're just drinking at the pub every night. That's the entire show. And it's just full of random nods to the stories that Bilbo used to tell. Because Bilbo will have been gone at this point, but he told a lot of stories to the town, and he was considered this big like mystery.
You can we can just cover the 30 years in which Gandalf
Yeah.
is gone.
Yeah.
Or 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so you've just got Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, and well, actually, it's not even really like that, because Sam is close with Frodo. Don't get me wrong, but they're not like BFFs. So it would actually be a different vibe. It would throw off a lot of movie watchers to see these characters not be so close with each other simply because they haven't gone on this adventure yet. So it would be just a little fun little thing set in the Shire. Would that solve everyone's problem? I mean, I kind of would like to see that. I mean, at least we have the source material for it, and we have a bunch of the fun stories that Bilbo used to tell. So we could literally just have it be like this mystery of like, where's that treasure that Bilbo had from those dwarves? And it's just like, that's the whole thing.
Right, but like you would have this show, but it would like each season would kind of have to focus on something different.
Yeah, obviously you would have,
because it'd be quite disconnected. You'd have like a season about what's going on in the Shire, and then a whole new set of characters. You could do stuff around Rivertown and Dale, and
yeah, you could do a whole bunch of areas if you wanted.
And then I think you could do. Well, I mean, they're making a video game. They're making like Gollum video game. I think that could be a series, but let's let the video game take care of that one.
You could tie in. I mean, if you had the rights, or if you could even ask the company what they were doing, just to throw some tie-ins, because like, I'm sure they would be fine with giving you some of the story elements that they're going to be using. And heck, I mean, Bilbo travels all over the place after leaving the Shire. You could literally just follow him if you wanted. And it could literally just be Bilbo kind of walking through Middle Earth and like coming across interesting events. I'm just spitballing here for some random show ideas that I don't think would upset anyone. People might not be as into them. Like, obviously this is like an epic, grandiose battle that they have tough shoes to follow. They're trying to basically recapture the original trilogy. Even The Hobbit wasn't able to recapture the original trilogy. So that's why I'm like, if you're gonna go big, get the whole works, or go much smaller scale and maybe build up to it eventually or something. I don't know, but I am not as sure of the show's direction with this answer to the different materials that they actually have access to, and the amount of hoops and lines that they have to be aware of when they're writing their material. That just seems like it's gonna really bog down the creative process, and so I really hope they can overcome that.
Yeah.
I regret to announce this is the end. I bid you all a very fond farewell.